June 1st, 2026 regular meeting of the Union County Board of Commissioners to order. At this time, I would like to recognize Vice Chair Christina Helms for the invocation.
For those so inclined, please join me in prayer. Heavenly Father, we come before you with a humble heart. Please be with this board, this county, our state, and this country. We ask you for wisdom and guidance, especially when making decisions for this county. Please forgive us when we fail you, Lord. We thank you for the recent rain and for your mercy and your grace. And all these things we ask in Jesus' holy and precious name. Amen.
Amen. Please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The next item on the agenda is informal comments from the community. Before we begin informal comments, I'd like to remind everyone that has signed up for informal comments that tonight we will be having our public hearing on the upcoming year budget. And so if your comments pertain to budgetary items, I would kindly ask that you reserve those comments for the public hearing. Each speaker for informal comments must address the board from the lectern and begin their remarks by giving their name, stating whether they are a resident of Union County, and indicating the municipality within they reside, if any. Each speaker will have 3 minutes to make remarks. A tone may sound at the conclusion of your remarks. A speaker may not yield any of his or her time to another speaker. Speakers may not discuss matters which are the subject of public hearings, and they must be courteous in their language and presentation. Restatements or repetitive comments by the same speaker, whether at the same or separate meetings, may be ruled out of order and terminated by the chair. Personal attacks will not be tolerated. Speakers may leave written comments and/or supporting documents, if any, with the clerk to this board. Our first speaker tonight is Ben Porter.
Right. Chair Helms, Vice Chair Helms, Commissioners, my name is Ben Porter. I'm a resident of Union County in Weddington. I'm here tonight to talk about the Sheriff's Office Flock Automated License Plate Reader Program and its place in the budget. First, just a quick introduction. I am first and foremost a Christian. I'm also a Navy veteran, a husband, and father. Let me recap the current license plate reader situation. Under North Carolina law, Chapter 20, Article 3D sets 9 specific requirements for any agency that operates automated plate readers. In March, Mr. Mark Russell stood in this room and pointed out that the Sheriff's Office implemented flock cameras 4 years ago, but had not adopted any written policy on the matter. The Sheriff's Office promptly adopted Policy 334, well done. Their policy lists the 9 requirements, but points to the flock vendor contract. The contract addresses only one of the 9 requirements, and then only partially. The other 8 do not exist in practice. We need to have some grace and understanding for the Sheriff's Office. I'm sure it's full of faithful servants trying to do their best work, but however, this is obviously too big of a request for them, and we need to help them fill it. Here's how we help. If you look on page 226, the budget requests an additional $60,000 for the ALPR program. That is on top of the roughly $140,000 it already gets per year. Take that roughly $200,000 in total and direct it into a proper ALPR compliance program for 2026. Do not decrease their funding. It is not realistic to ask them to implement a process without funding it. I'm sure they don't have people sitting around waiting to implement something like this. They're too busy keeping our community safe. But what we can't do is to continue with how things are today. The law states that the policy must be in place before the system is operational. This proposed budget would continue to fund a system that does not have the proper governance required by state law. This isn't a paperwork issue. The lack of policy shows us there are not proper controls in place. We should pause the flock contract for a year and properly fund a governance system. Finally, I respectfully request that you commissioners place ALPR governance on the business agenda for next year. Thank you, and God bless.
Thank you, Mr. Porter. Our next speaker is Abraham Gonzalez.
Chair Helms, Vice Chair Helms, Commissioners. My name is Abraham Gonzalez. I'm a resident of Union County in Wesley Chapel. I too am here tonight to speak about the Sheriff's Office Flock Automated License Plate Reader, or the ALPR program, and its place in the budget. I have the privilege of serving as a husband and father. Professionally, I work in the financial services industry, and I'm head of my firm's regulatory affairs department. I'm grateful for the opportunity to address this group with what I believe to be an important concern for our county and its citizens. I believe our law enforcement exists to serve a free society, not to surveil one. A free society depends on the sphere of life the government does not watch by default. Privacy is not paranoia. It is a precondition of liberty. That is the lens I bring to what I want to raise with you tonight. The Sheriff's Office is the agency that enforces law in our county, and as Mr. Porter just articulated, there's a number, North Carolina Law, Chapter 20, Article 3D, set 9 specific requirements for any agency that's operating automated license plate readers. The Sheriff's Office has had since 2022 to meet those requirements. They have deferred, as again Mr. Porter mentioned, to the flock vendor contract. And the contract addresses only 1 of 9 and only partially. So this is the question we are facing tonight. The agency that enforces law is operating a surveillance network outside the framework that the law requires. That is not a small thing in a free society. It's at the heart of why we have these laws to begin with. Advocates of freedom have always understood that the price of liberty is restraint, especially restraint on government power. The Fourth Amendment exists because the framers had lived under a government that did not need a warrant. Article 3D exists because the legislature understood that this technology, deployed without governance, slides in that same direction quickly. I think my children should be able to grow up in a county where the police are trusted because they operate inside the law, not because we have stopped asking the question. The way to keep our law enforcement worthy of that trust that they have worked so hard to earn is to insist that it follow the law when no one is watching. This is the conservative move. Let's slow down. Do not let the ends justify the means. The better part of prudence is to wait. So I respectfully submit 2 requests. First, placing the ALPR governance on the business agenda at the next regular meeting. And second, please withhold flock funding in this budget until the Sheriff's Office can demonstrate in writing that its policy actually implements Article 3D. This board has the authority. Tonight is the moment to use it. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you, sir. Our next speaker is Thomas Marsh.
My name is Thomas Marsh. I live in Marshville, North Carolina. I've lived there 76 years. Most of you don't even know me. A few of you do. And we're going to just talk about Union County justice system, or should we call it an unjust system. We all agree that justice denied is delayed is justice denied. We also will agree to one thing: fraud eviscerates anything, right? Also, conspiracy, collusion, and sedition will all come right under RICO. Folks, what happened to me 20 years ago, starting this year, about November, was just a sample that I kept digging and digging and digging over public corruption. It was not over a rodeo. Everybody thought I was standing up the county over a rodeo. It was public corruption, until I finally got to the point that Trump is now showing you the public corruption. If you will write it down so every one of you looks it up, Executive Order 13818. You're going to really enjoy this, because I'm really enjoying the Trump show. I know people in Union County that have to go to Gitmo. Do I know who did all the talking? Nope. I don't know that yet. But I do know I was the one that had Kristen Newberry Brooks hid. FBI knew that I knew where she was at in 2015 until we got her to the courtroom in 2016. I do know what her attorney did. Folks, I'm not a happy camper. This is 20 damn years. Just put me on the witness stand. I'm willing to talk. You're willing to keep me off the witness stand at every angle till I lost everything, give up everything I had to get on the witness stand. When Bundy was here, he shook like a dog every time I talked. It comes to your attorneys, and it goes to the courthouse. Just like I told the judge last time I was in the courthouse, this courthouse created me, and I'm enjoying the show. Thank you for your time. If y'all want to talk to me, we will talk. But you're getting ready to pay a bill you can't pay.
Thank you, Mr. Marsh. Our next speaker is Sarah Jewell.
Hello, I'm Sarah Jewell. I live in Weddington. I've lived here over 20 years, and thanks for letting me speak tonight, Commissioners. I've been watching several of your meetings, a lot of them on YouTube, and I've noticed that there's just a stream of good people in the county running non-for-profits or different organizations, and they're literally coming up every week asking you all for funding because they're not getting enough funding here or there. People aren't as generous because things are so expensive. And I'm just really going to be curious tonight when you guys talk about the budget, because it seems like we have less funding coming from every which way, from Raleigh, from the government, less donations. We've talked about the new jail that you guys are putting on as a bond that should have been built years ago, but they kicked that can down the road. And I recently, talking about the schools are the big issue now, not funding UCPS. I have a friend who retired last year from UCPS. She didn't get a raise for 14 years. I don't know anyone who would go to work without getting a raise for 14 years, especially with the cost of living. I literally don't know why she showed up for work. So you guys have a lot of issues coming here, and I even listened to your budget retreat that you guys had at Cane Creek Park, and one of the commissioners said, you know, maybe we need to get a delegation and go to DC or go to Raleigh and, you know, ask what's going on with our representatives in Washington and Raleigh. And I know a lot of our representatives in Raleigh, they've gone from the school board to the commissioners to Raleigh and whatnot, and I'm just a little confused why I'm not hearing the school board and the Board of Commissioners putting more pressure on them for adequate funding for our schools and for other things. Because, I mean, a lot of them are your friends, and I know you've helped them to get elected, and I don't see them serving our community. I mean, I just don't understand how we have people like Dean Arp talking about defunding public schools with the Opportunity Scholarship, which is not an opportunity. It might have started out that way, but anyone could get those funds. And we're not paying our teachers. Like, I just don't understand where our priorities are. Good schools, jobs, controlling growth, funding infrastructure, those are all things that I expect our representatives to do. Our roads are terrible. We know what's happening with schools. We can't afford them right now with the budget. We don't have a budget in Raleigh since 2023. So I just really would love to see you all, because I know your job is hard. Good people are asking you to fund things in this county that serves people, not just schools, but other things. They're always coming up asking you all for money. So I would just like to see better leadership from you all to put pressure on our representatives, because I don't see Todd or Dean or Willis showing up. They're not coming to any of the meetings I go to. They're not telling me what they're doing for my community. So that's pretty much all I have to say. Is I just would like to see more from you all. I'll be curious to hear about the budget and the meeting on Wednesday with the school board, because I don't know how you guys are going to fund everything. I don't see where the money's going to be coming from. And I think that's a choice that this county has made and the state has made, is that they just don't value public schools. It's obvious.
Thank you, Ms. Jewell. Our final speaker tonight, according to the list, is Jen Sanders.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Jen Sanders, and tonight I'm speaking to you as a parent, a taxpayer, and someone who believes deeply in Union County. Public education is not just another line item on the budget. It's the foundation upon which every other investment we make depends. Union County Public Schools educate over 40,000 students, and they are also one of the largest employers in our county. When our schools thrive, families thrive, businesses thrive, property values remain strong, and our local economy grows. With our schools' struggle, every one of us eventually pay the price. The reality is that our teachers and school staff are being asked to do more with less. Costs continue to rise, students' needs continue to grow, and yet too often our educators are left carrying the burden of decisions made far beyond the classroom. I appreciate the local investment in this board has made in public education, but I also believe we need to be honest about what the school funding means. When we talk about increasing in education funding, it's important to distinguish between capital spending and classroom spending. New buildings, debt service, capital projects are very important investments in our future, but those dollars do not necessarily put a teacher in the classroom, keep a nurse in the school, our media coordinators in the classrooms or schools, retain experienced educators, or provide services for students this year. If we're going to measure our commitment to public education, we need to look not only at what we build, but also what we may sustain. Our teachers, staff, and students experience the impact of funding decisions every single day. A ribbon-cutting ceremony is great for a photo op, but fully staffed classrooms changes a child's life. I also believe local leaders have a responsibility to advocate beyond these walls. Every commissioner on this board has relationships with state legislators. Every commissioner has a voice. I urge you to please use it. This is the time. Tell Raleigh that Union County values its public schools. Tell them that our teachers deserve competitive pay. Tell them that growing counties need growing support. Tell them that shifting public dollars away from public schools while expecting districts like ourselves to do more is not a sustainable strategy. Public education is especially important in communities like ours. For many students, their school is not only a place of learning, it is where they find mentors, meals, opportunities, career paths, and hope for the future. And while much of the tax base comes from the western side of the county, our responsibility extends to every child in Union County. Whether the students live in Waxhaw, Wesley Chapel, Monroe, Marshville, Wingate, Fairview, wherever in between, they all deserve the same opportunity to succeed. If we allow one part of the county to fail or fall behind, eventually the entire county pays the price. We succeed together and we struggle together. This is not a Democrat or Republican issue. This is a Union County issue. The students in our classroom today will become the teachers in the future. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, are there any other speakers who have not signed up that would like to provide public or informal comment? Seeing none, then we'll move to the next item on our agenda. The next item on our agenda is item 26-317, and that's the public hearing for our county manager's proposed fiscal year 2027 budget. I will open the public hearing and recognize County Manager Brian Matthews for his comments.
All right. Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman and board members. Budget season is upon us. We have obviously a lot for us to do over the next few weeks before possible budget adoption, but I'm going to go through the manager's recommended budget. Tonight is not necessarily about adoption. Certainly, if you have questions, I'll do my best to answer those. If you have questions in the future between now and the 16th, please provide those to me and the staff so we can have that available for you. We can certainly do some additional information or provide additional information at the next meeting if you have some detailed items that you want. So I just want to stress that this is just about information, not about decisions tonight. First off, let's talk about the budget as a whole. So that very large number at the top, $664 million, is our total budget. Now, when I say that, that does not mean that that is general government as a whole. That's everything. That's our water and sewer department. That's solid waste. That's the money we pay for schools. That is our debt. That's our CIP. That is every single thing in our budget. The real number you want to look at that is mostly the general fund item is the $470 million budget. That budget is really specific to general government. It's specific to the education fund and the education debt, as well as general fund debt. That's really what we're here to talk about. Obviously, there are budgets for our solid waste department and our public works, water and sewer department, but those are separate and individual. I will touch on that in just a little bit. But I did want to point out that number of $470 million. That is the general fund total budget. Now, you can see that education makes up a big portion of that. $176 million for just the operating side of it, another $53+ million for the debt side of it. And then the general fund makes up roughly about $240 million if you add up all those next three items. In every budget, you have to determine where your revenue comes from. We get the vast majority of our revenue from our property taxes. So we have what's called a penny value, and every property has to pay a property tax. There's a penny value associated with that property tax. For us here in Union County, we anticipate that the penny value for every penny that you have on your tax rate would generate about $6.5 million this year. That's up a little over 6% from last year. So every year we're fortunate in that we have a growing county as far as our economics go, growing as far as population, and growing as probably value of the properties that are here. And that's reflected in that penny value that we have, roughly about $6.5 million for every penny that we have on our tax rate. Some of the things that we're proud of in this particular budget is we're not recommending any kind of a tax rate change for the budget as a whole. We're not recommending any tax rate change for general fund. Union County does what we call a bifurcated tax rate. So we show on our tax bills what is the tax rate for general fund, and then what is the tax rate for education. Education includes both UCPS, Union County Public Schools, South Piedmont Community College, as well as your charter schools. That is a component that's inside of that. But for general fund, the county itself, sheriff's office, EMS, planning, not public works, planning, your procurement, all of those functions, our tax rate is recommended at 11.24 cents. That is the same as it was last year. That is a slight increase, around 6% increase. We are utilizing or recommending utilizing $5.6 million of our unassigned fund balance to help fund this year's budget. Unassigned fund balance is our savings account. We have a surplus of funds available. We can use those to help pay for things. You don't use those dollars to pay for ongoing operations. You use them for one-time expenses. And that's what we're requesting. We would use those for vehicle purchases, for the purchase of some tax assessment software, any other capital improvement needs. We would use it for those funds because they're one time, not to pay for salaries, not to pay for your operations as a whole. We also are redirecting a little over $3 million from our capital funds for other capital projects. So where we made savings, if we did a project and we budgeted, $1 million and we only spent $800,000, we're using that $200,000 for other capital projects. Where we had a capital project we intended to do but decided that that was a lower priority, we moved those funds to do more higher priority capital projects. So we're shifting that money, keeping it within capital, so we're not going outside of that, but shifting those dollars so that we can better utilize those for our capital needs.
Brian,
All right. And anytime you have a question, please don't hesitate to stop me. Yes,
Yeah,
sir.
Brian, so just a real quick question. You mentioned the bifurcated budget. It's been a while since we talked about, a bifurcated budget.
Yes,
Because
sir.
that was one of the first things that Commissioner Merrill and I, as well as Commissioner Rushing, had worked on when we were first elected. Would you mind going into a little bit of detail there for maybe new board members as well as folks that are present in the meeting?
Sure.
About, what a bifurcated budget is and maybe the benefits as far as transparency?
Absolutely. Thank you, sir. So some of the challenges that we faced in years past was really related to if you have one budget and one tax rate that you reflect, it's sometimes difficult to be able to point to how those funds are distributed for certain purposes. Education being one of those large funds. You'll see later on what it makes up in our budget. But because education makes up such a large portion of our budget, the board felt that we really needed to shine a light on that and be more transparent about how those dollars are reflected in our budget and how the public can see how those dollars are reflected in our budget. So we created a system where we have a rate for general government. So when we pay for the sheriff's office, we pay for parks and rec and libraries, that's within one tax rate. But when we pay for education, South Piedmont Community College, UCPS, charter schools, that has its own specific tax rate, generates revenue that we use for education purposes. Again, it's just a way of being transparent and also showing that those funds are used for the purposes of education. So that was really the logic behind going to a pilot. Now, in the real world, when we submit our audit, it really shows one budget, all that information. For an audit purposes, it doesn't split it. This is split on your tax bill, it's split in our budget document, but for the state, we really give them one tax rate, and that's how our audit goes through. Did that answer your question?
Yes, sir, it did. And, obviously, as I recall, there was a lot of discussion about us going up to a bifurcated model. There was also a lot of support from our educational partners at that time for that model as well.
Yes, sir.
But thank you. I appreciate the explanation.
Absolutely. So let's talk about some of the general fund things that we're doing this year or recommending this year. We are recommending some additional positions within the budget. Last year, with some budget challenges, we really did put enhancements or new positions on hold. This year, we understand that, number one, we have levels of service that we obviously need to keep up. And sometimes it takes additional staff and resources to be able to keep those levels of services up. Also, we have some challenges. There are some mandates that are coming down from the state and the federal government that do require us to have more resources to be able to accomplish those functions. HR 1 out of the federal government is one of those. At our Health and Human Services offices, we're going to have more resources to be able to meet those regulations that are coming out. So I'm just going to go over a few things here. We are recommending some 7 FTEs, that's full-time equivalent employees. That's made up of part-time and full-time employees. So when it says FTE, that means that's an equivalent. So there are some part-time positions listed in that. So when you see 7, that doesn't mean necessarily 7 full-time employees. It may be 5 full-time employees and 2 part-time employees, or 4 parts to get it to 7. So that's how that's broken up. These positions, these 7 at the top, are fully funded with revenues out of our general fund. So those include a position for our fire marshal's office, our emergency management, and 1 SRO, school resource officer, to be able to finish out the SRO program, to have 1 in every single school. So that this would be the last year we would need to add an SRO. That is in this particular budget. Also for central services, some folks for our information technology, our communication staff, register of deeds, security, and tax. Now again, that's made up of a combination of some part-time positions, some full-time positions. Then we also have 8.65 FTEs, which are fully or partially funded by other sources. So we get grants. We get money from the federal government to help us pay for Medicaid. So there are and also for fees. So say, for instance, our building code department. Building code, while it is not considered an enterprise function, it runs off of its own revenue. There are fees that they collect from the builders and developers. Those fees then go to pay for the staff and everything that goes out of that department. So when I say fees and contracts and grants, that's what I mean by that. There are several positions that are in that list. SPRAC, which is our new regional autopsy center. There's a couple of positions that will be paid for with state grant for that. Your investigator and your forensic autopsy technician. In our law enforcement, we have a number of contracts with our sheriff's deputies providing service for municipalities. We will provide a supervisor or a sergeant to supervise those different contracts. That will be paid for as part of those contracts with those municipalities. Stormwater engineer, that is going to be paid for with the fees from our building code. And that is really due to the fact that, number one, we're increasing our stormwater requirements, and we also have a number of stormwater issues that we're addressing countywide. Then, as I mentioned, with HR 1, we've got some eligibility specialists and some WIC nutritionists. This is both Medicaid and federal dollars that will be helping to pay for that. We have an HR coordinator who will be assisting, be funded mostly by our UC Water Department. And then we have a part-time ag services attendant, and that's paid for by the fees for those services. So again, this is what's requested as part of this budget. Understand that the enterprise functions may have additional staff that's not reflected on this. Yes, sir, do you have a question?
Yeah, Brian, I just wanted to go back to the stormwater engineer there for just a minute. So, this board's had some discussion, obviously, about our county ordinances in regards to stormwater, but that's been essentially in the vein of what type of stormwater mitigation we're going to require, and I'm assuming that's where you're going.
Yes, sir.
Because, obviously, we've had a lot of discussion about, we've even talked about, having a stormwater utility, but that doesn't make a lot of sense right now for our county. However, I think that it's important that we recognize that yes, we do in fact have some stormwater needs, and it is a good idea to look at those ordinances.
Yes, sir, absolutely. And the board had made that commitment to changing those regulations, but with that comes added pressure for us to be able to keep up with all of the work that has to be done with stormwater.
Sure.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
So let's talk about the sheriff's office and some of the things we're doing for public safety. Previously, we had some cadet positions set aside for the sheriff's office. The sheriff and his staff came to us and said, listen, those positions aren't really working exactly the way they would have hoped. They have a need for some additional detention officers. We understand that. They are frequently at or above capacity at the jail. This is converting those positions to detention officers to better meet that need for their detention officers. We think that's certainly needed. Again, the additional school resource officer will have that. And because the sheriff's office is growing and the need for technology expands, we recognize that they do need some help with their IT support. They do have 2 positions right now. This would have a 3rd position to help them with all of the IT functions that they do with their department. And another thing that they asked us to look into, and I think this is actually an excellent idea for us to be more competitive across the region, is for us to recognize education and military service when we're looking at our current employees as well as new hires. I think that makes us an employer that someone will want to come work for, because we are, again, incentivizing those folks to again, get that extra education, to recognize their military service and hopefully show them that they are valued here in Union County. So as part of that is recommended in this budget to provide those incentives for current employees, current sheriff's office employees, as well as future deputies that might be hired.
County Manager, I have one quick question
Yes,
before we
ma'am.
move on. It's really good to see these positions for the Sheriff Department. I believe almost everyone on this board has been contacted. I just wanted to ask, has the Sheriff Department requested a chaplain, a full-time chaplain,
No.
with their positions?
No, ma'am, they have not requested a full-time chaplain.
They have not?
No.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Continuing on with with our public safety. So what are the things that we want to do for our EMS department? Again, another $800,000 for our staffing expansion. We currently have a sort of a hybrid deployment model. Previously, we were in more of a dynamic deployment model where vehicles were driving all over the county. We're trying to go to more of a hybrid where we do a static location in some areas of the county where they basically they wait in their trucks before they actually have to be dispatched, and then dynamic around more of the Monroe and the more of the urban area. We have seen some great strides in hiring for our EMS staff, and I can say that Atrium has done a great job with that. And I think a lot of that has to do with the ALS and BLS model that we have. ALS being your advanced life support, and then BLS being basic life support. And the way we use that, I think, has really helped to, number one, retain staff and also to attract staff. So again, we're funding that. $2.7 million for capital needs, this vehicle replacement. That's also some funding for some of those stations that we're going to need. I think we need 5 over the next few years. We've identified 4 locations for stations. We'll be working on that 5th. Now, we haven't necessarily put them in place yet. We'll be working on putting those stations in place. And some of that is partnering with the local fire departments. So where we can, we'll partner. Where we can't, we'll look for its own individual location. But we have identified those. We're working on that. There will be some additional funds needed in the future. This is just some seed money for that right now. And then also, there were some savings that the EMS folks recognized that we put back into capital, $650,000 in savings. Kudos to them for being able to find ways to put money back into the things that they need. So we really appreciate that. That's something that we can applaud them for. Fire services. We have, I think, 15 or 16 different fire departments in the volunteer fire departments in the county. We lost one, so that's why I have to get my mind right about that. In Union County, we were a little unique with having so many different volunteer fire departments. We had to go through a change for how we fund those fire departments. Right now, all volunteer fire departments, with the exception of Monroe, because Monroe is a municipal fire department, all other fire departments have a defined or specific tax rate for their fire services. So every year we go through, we look at their budget requests, look at what they're trying to accomplish from equipment standpoint, from anything to do with their buildings, their needs as far as their staff. And I will say there are challenges that we're facing. Because of all of the mandated training, the things that fire departments have to do, it is becoming increasingly difficult to run a fully volunteer fire department. And unfortunately, what that means is we have to fund positions. We have to hire firemen to come and work. And that becomes expensive. And we're seeing that across the county. So a lot of the tax rates they are moving towards funding those permanent or full-time positions. Also, the cost of equipment is just gone through the roof. In the last 5 years, the cost of buying a new fire truck has doubled. You could buy one for $400,000 or $500,000. It's close to $1 million for one today, and you have to wait forever to get it. It takes that long for those to come in place. So what you'll see in this budget are the different tax rates specific to those fire departments. Now, I do want to stress that the county also has a fund that we generate from the public as a whole that we also contribute to the fire department. So not only do they have their own tax rate, but there are some funds that we give to them for some specific purposes. That's why we're a little bit unique. So when you're looking in your budget, if you have questions about those fire rates, please let us know. But understand that we have done a good job of trying to work with those departments in identifying their needs, their future needs, and establishing a rate that's effective for them in the long run. All right, Union County Water and Sewer. This is one of our enterprise functions. So oftentimes I get asked the question, where are my tax dollars going for water and sewer? Your tax dollars are going nowhere for water and sewer because tax dollars do not pay for water and sewer. Ratepayers, people who are customers of the Union County water system, water and sewer system, are the ones who actually pay for this. I want to stress that because oftentimes our taxpayers, a lot of folks on wells, they want to know why they can't get help, but it's because their tax dollars aren't going for this. It is the folks who actually are customers who pay for that. And our rates are fairly competitive, but they are based on all of the work that we have to do. We are a fairly young system. Our administrator for that likes to say we're a teenager. I agree with him. We're not an old system, but we're certainly not an infant. We're somewhere in between. And that what comes with that is as the system ages, we have a lot more work we have to do. As you can see here, we've got a $100 million budget proposed. That's made up of the items that we pay for operations as well as our capital needs. This board has approved in the past, which is part of our master plan, a $700 million capital plan that we're in the process of implementing. Now, that's not a one-year plan. That's a 5-year plan. But in 5 years, we're going to spend close to $700 million on improving our system, adding water tanks, adding lines, replacing lines, doing the work necessary to make that system run more efficiently and effectively. There is an increase, obviously. Some of that has to do with the cost increases. Our cost of chemicals have gone up. We now have a new water plant, the Yadkin water plant. It costs more to run a water plant than when we didn't run a water plant. So those are things we have to deal with. And just so you have some information for you, we've added over 11 miles of water and sewer lines in the county. That may not seem like a lot, but that's a pretty fair amount. And I don't have the number, but a portion of that is from our short line water program, where we've added those folks to our system so that they can have safe drinking water. There are some positions in this budget that we would be asking to add. As the system grows, we need crews to work on our valves. A STEG is really what essentially, we have some systems in place that were put in 30 years ago that is nothing more than a glorified septic tank that connects to our sewer system. Those have aged out. We're in the middle of replacing them. It is a 10-year program. It's going to take that long for us to replace all those. That's what we mean by STEG. It's really those septic system hybrids that we have out there. Cross connections, that's when people sometimes connect things to the system that they shouldn't be. They connect irrigation, they connect your stormwater to the system. All things that we shouldn't have connected. We have now some regulations in place for cross connection, and we obviously want to make sure that we're meeting those requirements. And then we have, as we grow and our customers grow, we have customer care needs for our customer service folks. We add a position for that, a construction inspector, and then reclassification of an engineer from a part-time to a full-time position. And I also want to add at the top there that this is the third year of the 3-year approval by this board for rate increases that which really go towards our capital plan. So what you'll see is a 7.25% increase for water customers and a 6% increase for sewer customers, and that really is for our capital program. Now, that doesn't mean that we won't have any more rate increases. I think if I can refresh your memory, when we showed you what we were faced with over the next 10-plus years, we're going to have some additional rate increases in the future. We just didn't know what those numbers were. They get a little fuzzier the farther they get out. So we gave you a 3-year plan. We're going to come back to you with another rate evaluation for another 3-year plan and show you what those rates would be, get your feedback on that. We'll also be updating the master plan, so we'll have that information so you can see it and you can make informed decisions about what those rate increases may need to be for the future. Yes, sir.
And Brian, just going back to the master plan, you know, so as I recall, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but as I recall, what we were faced with was a potential emergency deficiency of water. So you mentioned the water tanks there, and that became very problematic in response to, well, you know, building fires and things of that nature. So it was a safety problem that we had, where we didn't have enough water and also pressure to supply in case of emergencies. And so that was a big part, you know, in the tanks and things like that were approved by this board previously. I appreciate you saying we've got some additional challenges, because we do. You know, we've got to look at things like Catawba, for example.
Yes, sir.
So Catawba is the largest of, well, it services more customers right now than the Yadkin. And so that's owned jointly with Lancaster. And so we're going to have some challenges there where we have to look at, you know, what we can do to increase capacity jointly with Lancaster.
I'm glad you brought that up. That actually is part of the master plan, is an expansion of that plan. And because we do have partners, we have worked hand in hand with Lancaster County on expansions. And they have been a very good partner that sometimes they didn't necessarily need the expansion, but they went along because we needed it. They're getting to the point where they need an expansion. And of course, I'm not saying we don't, but they're really driving the need for an expansion. We're going to be good partners like they've been good partners. We're going to participate in that. Absolutely.
Mr. Merrill.
So 3 years ago, when we started looking at what we needed to do for water and sewer, we had a consultant that came in. When will we get an update? Was that like a 5-year plan? So we've got 2 more years before we'll get updated information from the consultant?
So you'll get an update hopefully in less than 2 years. Obviously, we're going to select a vendor, a consultant to help us with that. They'll do that work. And so hopefully in less than 2 years, we'll have a revised or an updated master plan, and that should feed into what your recommended rate structure should be for the next go-around.
And Brian, real quick, if I recall, you know, this plan was of course water heavy, not necessarily sewer, and we intentionally did that.
Yes, sir.
You know, I will say that we looked at certain plans that had a lot higher increases that would have included a lot of sewer projects that this board was not in favor of. So, you know, I know that people at home may be looking at a 7.9%, but if I recall, some of the modeling was much higher, and it was till the end of time.
Oh, absolutely. And in fact, to your point, there were some discussions on if you wanted to expand sewer capacity, and it was a $500 million price tag just for that one particular project. Just to put that into perspective, that would have probably raised rates somewhere around 30+%. Because honestly, $500 million, we don't have that in the bank. And that would be a hefty lift. And this board looked at that and said, that's just not something that we're going to bite off at this point in time. There are some things that we're going to have to do with capacity. We are expanding our 12 Mile Creek plant. That is well on its way. In fact, should be, I believe, operational in 2027. So we'll have that expansion certainly available. We'll have to make some decisions on our Crooked Creek plant. If we're going to continue to keep it running, which I believe we will be, there's some dollars we're going to have to put into that as well. So obviously, you know, it is heavy on the water side, and that was on purpose, but there are still some things that we'll need to do for the sewer. Economic development. Oh, I'm sorry, did you have additional questions? Sorry.
Well, I think it's important to state that although we're talking a lot about water right now, 3 years ago or 2.5 years ago, when we were putting together this plan and this 3-year rate increase, we did allocate funds to increase 12 Mile
Yes, ma'am.
from 7.5 million gallons per day to 9 million
Yes,
gallons
ma'am.
per day. And so that should be coming online.
2027.
Yeah, 2027, so it's right around the corner. So, and then, if I'm not mistaken, last month, when we got the sewer capacity numbers, 12 Mile, even at 7 million gallons per day, was at 69.9% capacity, so, at actual
Yes, ma'am.
capacity. So, if we're at, let's say, round up and say 70% capacity today, even at 7 million gallons per day, that is going to be even better, obviously, when we're able to open the doors to 9 million gallons per day. So
Certainly.
you hear a lot of sidebar comments that we have not planned for the future. And I just want to say that with our staff and this plan from 3 years ago, we are planning for the future. And 12 Mile very soon will be at 9 million gallons per day. So we're taking care. I think we've done a very good job conservatively taking care of water and sewer.
Yes, ma'am, and I'd say what this board have done is you've planned within your budget. You can plan all day long to have $1 million, but if you can't put $1 million in the bank, planning is nothing. So I think within your budget, you've done an excellent job of planning for the future, and I applaud you for what you've done. Again, we'll have some more things for the board to discover once we get that new master plan, but at any rate, we're in a good place as far as our water and sewer department.
Staying within the budget is a good thing, Brian.
Yes, sir.
And let's be fair, it's not really our budget, it's the taxpayers or the
Yes, ma'am.
ratepayers'
Ratepayers.
budget. And the last thing I'll say is if that $500 or $600 million sewer project had gone through, like you said, rates would have gone up in excess of 30% plus instead of 7.25. And that was going to take 10 to 15 years.
Yes, ma'am.
So again, people need to understand that even if that sewer plant had gone through, which, if you think there's construction everywhere you look today, I mean, you can only imagine how many rooftops, I think 30,000, 29,000 new rooftops would be going up had that gone through. But again, that stuff does not happen overnight. It would have been 10 to 15 years before that sewer plant was up and running.
Yes, ma'am.
So I think, what I want to say to our taxpayers, because it is their budget, we're just kind of overseeing it for the county, is that, we have planned for the future. And we are working with Lancaster, Yadkin, and I think we've done a really good job on the water and the sewer and listening to what the taxpayers do and do not want in their backyard.
Yes, ma'am, absolutely. Economic development. So this board decided essentially last year that we were going to create our own individual economic development department within the county. We previously shared that with the city of Monroe, kind of outgrew that relationship, felt that it was better that we had our own individual department. Certainly nothing against Monroe, and we assist them where we can and anytime they ask, obviously. But I will say that this has been an excellent decision. Number one, the boards, we do set aside a certain amount of our tax rate for economic development, and that yields about $550-some thousand that we can put towards land acquisition, and this board has approved some land acquisition projects. Again, that is for us to secure that property so that we can then make it available for industrial and commercial development in the future. We will continue to build that, those funds so that we can use that for additional purchases in the future. We've got a little over $2.76 million in business incentive grants. And these are for already customers that are going to be coming to us, businesses are going to be coming to us. And then just to let you know, we've had $240 million of announcements for industrial and commercial development within the last year. That's excellent. So I think that has been a godsend to bring those folks in-house. They are working very closely with our other municipalities to help them. Because obviously, when our municipalities prosper and benefit, so do we, because they're all inside the county, and we want to make sure that they benefit as well. All right.
Hey, Brian.
Yes, sir.
Just real quick, thank you for this slide. I think that that's very important for everybody to see, the commitment that staff as well as this board have had towards economic development. And, we talk about this, we talk about this all the time, about how the current ratio right now of Union County is 90% residential, and that's just approximate numbers.
Yes.
But the 10% includes everything else. I mean, everything.
Yes. It's
So
not just
that-
industrial, it's everything.
Correct. That's industrial, that's retail, that's commercial, that's, everything under the sun. So I think it's important to understand that, we've had a commitment, and this shows through in the budget towards economic development. And where we need to be is somewhere probably between 70 and 60% residential, and then 40% everything else. That's a tough hill for us to climb right now.
Yes, sir.
But we got to start somewhere, and it seems like, our staff, our economic development staff, we've got great people there that are working hard to try to turn that around for us.
Yes, sir.
I'd like to add to that too, when you're 90% residential and only 10% commercial industrial, we're talking about jobs. And so, and 49%, almost half of our tax dollars go to education. And Union County Public Schools is like number one or number three in the whole state. So when you think about return on investment, we want those students to be able to come back home and have a job. Mm-hmm. So return on investment is not sending our kids off to someone else's county or someone else's state. We want to have jobs here, and so that's our commitment, to retain talent.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, talking about education, because you brought that up, it's a good segue. As I said before, we fund in a separate tax rate for education, and education includes UCPS, South Piedmont, as well as charter schools. But I did want to focus, and I'll do individually and show you what those are individually. So Union County Public Schools did submit a budget request. So you can see here what their appropriation request was in this current fiscal year. So they had requested $160 million, or I think they requested more, but in the end, we funded $160 million plus for FY26, the year that we're in right now. And then what we received from UCPS was a request for $174 million, almost $174,500,000. That went up significantly from their operating, about $14 million, a little over $14 million in their operating expense. And then, of course, their capital only went up just a little bit, a little over $100,000. We are not going to recommend at this point in time that we fund that full request, and I'll go through what we're recommending. But currently, there is a formula, a statutory formula for how you figure out how much more that you have to fund for public schools. And that formula almost always yields an increase. It is very rare that that formula is going to yield a decline in funds for schools. So when we give them additional funds, the way that thing works is we're almost always next year going to be required to give them additional funds. In this particular year, if you did their statutory requirement, it's $5.6 million, a little over $5.6 million that we would be required per that formula to increase their operating expenses. So if you were to look at that, our projected funding amount would be $165 million, almost $166 million. I'll go through those specifics in a minute, but just to show you, there is a wide gap between what was requested, what we're required to give, and then what, in the end, I'm going to recommend that the board consider. Yes, ma'am.
I have one question. So I think it's very important to talk about and show the public and Union County Public Schools what the state formula yields. And you said 5.6 million above last year.
Yes, ma'am.
So they're not just getting 5.6 million, they're getting that in addition to what they got last year. So I think that formula is very important. That is a
Yes, ma'am.
state requirement. What I'm not seeing, and I hope we'll talk about this, is, when we talked about fire, we said our fire departments had their own tax rate.
Yes, ma'am.
Well, Union County Public Schools has their own tax rate.
Yes, ma'am.
And so I want to make sure that we talk about that to show what does their tax rate yield them versus what the state formula yields them.
Yes, ma'am.
And how the county has always given them exceedingly more than even what the formula told us to give them.
Yes, ma'am.
So when we see this, $14.2 million change, I want to make sure that you're showing the public what their known tax rate is and what that would yield them for '27.
I do have a slide to show
Okay.
some of that.
Awesome.
I may not have the number, I can tell you the number, but I do have a slide showing you the tax rates. So
Perfect.
I can-
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Hey, Brian, another quick question. So obviously, what we're looking at here, the 5.6, that's projected operating capital increase. This is the statutory requirement.
Yes, sir.
Do we have any idea about, because that's what is being required of us by state law.
Yes, sir.
So, obviously, local governments like the county have no control over this. This is what state law dictates to us.
Yes, sir.
And they basically say, this is what you got to pay, and that's going to be sent over to UCPS, and that's their money.
Yes.
Do we have any idea what the state is increasing the funding?
I do not know at this point in time, I'm sorry. I know they have made some recommended changes for salaries for all state employees. I don't know if that's been adopted or what those numbers are at this point in time.
Well, if you look at this year's budget from the state, 2026, and even if you look at 2025, when UCPS's enrollment has declined, the state gave them less.
Yes.
But counties are not allowed to give them less because of this mandated formula. But I also want to point out, so this year, the state formula requires us to give 5.6 million above what we gave them last year.
Yes, ma'am.
And so that's a very important number because let's say the state required us to give them an additional 5.6, but this board voted to give them through their tax rate an additional 8.8.
Sure.
So when we say that they haven't been underfunded, we've actually given them more money than what the state even gave them, and the state gave less. So
Yeah.
I think that's very important.
Yes, ma'am, absolutely. So, some of the, and again, I've got some more slides here, so please stop me if you want, but I do have some more slides. Some of the things that are major as far as the education investments, specifically to UCPS, is we are recommending funds for teacher and teacher aid supplements or stipends, however you want to define that. And I'll talk about that number here in just a little bit. But we are recommending that be part of this budget. We're also recommending that we meet 100% of their capital needs at $20.9 million. And as part of the tax rate that we have specifically for education, we'll be using some of those funds to cover the cost of SROs. Let's be clear, SROs don't benefit general government, they benefit UCPS. That is a cost for that function. So we are intending on using some of those funds to cover that cost. Yes, ma'am.
And just to reiterate, we are not cutting SROs from schools. We have one more SRO that is needed for a one-to-one ratio, correct?
That is correct, absolutely. We are not cutting, in fact, we're adding, we're enhancing that by adding a position. And I'll talk about that in a little bit more detail. So I talked about contingency and the funding for teachers and teachers' aid. We're recommending we set aside a little over $3.8 million to be used for teacher stipends and teacher assistance funds. Teacher assistants have been left out in the past. And we feel that that is an area we need to make sure that we recognize the hard work that those individuals do. Teachers do an amazing job, but I think we've missed the opportunity to help with teachers' assistants.
I'd be careful with the word "we."
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Because we were under the impression that the teachers, teacher aides, transportation, and facilities would be getting the increases last year after our joint meeting in April. But then we found out that teacher aides, facilities, and transportation had been eliminated. And I think 7 or 8 positions had been added, but those 3 had been removed.
Okay. Yes, ma'am. Those positions have not been funded at the level I think they should be funded, and not necessarily through county dollars, but through UCPS's budget. Now, obviously, they get funding sources from all different federal, state, us, but we felt it was important that we try to recognize that in this budget. That $3.8 million, this is just rough because, again, number one, first, this is contingent upon us having a working agreement with the schools on how those funds would be distributed, when they would be distributed, and who they would actually go for. Classroom teachers, teachers' aides, those are things that we need to iron out and have an agreement in place with the schools. But this budget sets aside funds for that purpose. I can tell you what would those numbers be, roughly. If everything works out great, roughly about $1,000 per teacher, an additional supplement for teachers, and approximately $750 for the teacher's assistants. Again, those are not final numbers for those individuals. It all depends on our negotiations and discussions with Union County Public Schools and whether or not this really truly yields enough to make that be exactly $1,000, exactly $750. It may be some slight difference, but that's just a rough guess based on what we know.
What do you mean by negotiations?
Well,
Why would we not want to do this?
I didn't say we didn't. We have to
Okay.
have the school boards. Number one, I recommend that the school board agree to this. If the school board doesn't agree to it, then this board has the ability not to fund this.
Okay.
So that would be my recommendation.
So even though it's a county supplement, if they don't agree to it, then,
We would not fund it.
okay, thank you.
That would be my recommendation. Now, this board you can make decisions different than that, but in this budget, it is based on an agreement with UCPS to fund it in the way that we all feel is appropriate. So there's no misunderstanding on who's funding and when it's getting funded.
So we can want to do it, and we can set aside $4 million to do this for the teachers and teacher assistants. But if they just decide to use the money somewhere else, then it doesn't happen?
So we are not recommending that this be put in their budget right away. We recommend that this is contingent upon agreement, and then it would be put in their budget. So while this is funds that we would set aside for that purpose, it would not be part of their budget allocation in the beginning. It would only become part of their budget allocation if they agree and we all work out those requirements, and then we release those funds. Yes, ma'am.
Which is very different than what happened last year.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, and I'll just say that, obviously, this is in response to, well, some of the things we heard voiced, last year by UCPS, and the fact that, it was explained to this board, I believe multiple times, that their number one priority was to attract and retain teachers. Yeah, classroom teachers. And, to your point earlier, I just want to chime in and say, I'm glad that we're including teachers' aides here, because it's my understanding that, that they didn't receive anything, as far as like a bonus or a supplement increase. And I realize that the pay structure is a little different there. But,
It is.
But at the same time, these are folks that are the backbones of our elementary schools. And trust me, I know I've got 2 kids in elementary school right now. So I'm glad to see that, and I would anticipate, I think that it's been made public now that we're going to have a joint meeting on Wednesday.
Yes, sir.
So I would anticipate that we're going to have some discussion, and hopefully a respectful dialogue there with the Board of Education in regards to, this contingency fund. I think that, we'll be able to better discuss what our board's expectation is at that time.
Sure.
But, I think a lot's been made already to this point. Well, what about certified staff? And I think that, we've had that discussion numerous times. The way that we interpret the need is that teachers and TAs are the number one priority. Not to say that our other folks over there at UCPS are not important, because they are.
Yes, sir.
But that's where the pain point is as far as retention is concerned. So again, I would anticipate this to be a big topic of discussion on Wednesday.
Yes, sir. Absolutely.
Well, in certified staff, if all of those other positions that got added, absolutely they're important. But they're paid more than the classroom teacher too. And so when we met last April, I think teachers in Union County Public Schools, the local supplement, I think Union County teachers had dropped to number 42 in the state,
Remember the number.
lower than we would like.
Sure.
And that's why it was so adamant that we wanted the classroom teachers to get that supplement, because even, the models we were looking at would move them maybe to number 17 in the state or number 11 in the state,
Sure.
depending on which way they went with the money. And unfortunately, I looked at the North Carolina Association for County Commissioners recently, and they haven't updated their data, to the best of my knowledge, so that we can see if what we were able to push through last year with them getting the $1,000 increase, where do we land in 2026? Because the goal last April was to move our teacher pay up through the supplement, because the base salary is out of our control based on whatever, happens in Raleigh, because they're state employees. But what we can control at the county level is that supplement.
Yes, ma'am.
And so I'm excited. I hope they are open to this proposal here to move our teachers up, to move their salary up and be competitive with surrounding counties.
Yes, ma'am. Absolutely. The last item here is just to kind of point out that, the funding for charter schools continues to go up. It's estimated to go up about $1 million this coming year to roughly $16 million. That is not anything that UCPS can control. It is essentially a pass-through. They have to estimate how much they think that will be, and the money really goes with the student. So if the student goes to a charter school, then essentially we give the money to UCPS, and then they fund it. So it's really a pass-through. It's nothing they control, but it does come out of their budget, and we provide that funding for that, or that estimate for that.
And just a quick question here, Brian. So the funding is calculated, or how is this funding calculated then? Is it per pupil?
I believe it's per pupil basis, is my understanding, and again, it goes with the student, so it can actually go out of the county. That's a lot of things that people don't understand. If a student that lives here in Union County but goes to a charter school in Mecklenburg County, that money goes with them to Mecklenburg County, doesn't stay in Union County. Now, I don't think we have a lot of those situations, but there are some. So obviously, we do have charter schools here in the county, and their enrollment has been sort of increasing over the years, which I know is cutting into the enrollment for UCPS, because UCPS's enrollment dropped. It may be a little, it may have plateaued at this point, but it has been going down.
And yeah, and that's kind of where I was going. I kind of had a question when I was looking over the budget, and let me just go ahead and say, thank you and staff for putting these things together. I'm gonna hold this up so people can see that, because we call this our budget, Bible, basically. But there's about, I don't know, 388 pages or so, close to 400 pages of really fun information, right? So,
Yes, sir.
but as I was reviewing the budget this weekend, I saw that there was an increase there in the charter school funding. And so my question was that because of, obviously we've seen a decline in enrollment, so that would explain perhaps an increase in the charter school funding.
Yes, sir.
Because the funding follows the student. But that's not just charter schools though, correct? That also includes homeschools?
That I don't know the answer to. I don't know if that includes homeschools or not. I mean, total student population is homeschool as well as charter schools. Whether or not this funding is, I think it's only for charter schools. I don't believe there's any funding that goes at the homeschool level.
Right.
But obviously enrollment is affected by
Correct.
homeschool. Yes.
Okay.
I have, so I don't want to dig through this right now, but when I was studying over the weekend, it was estimated that the charter school enrollments was going to be $16.5 million.
Yeah, we got this revised estimate today.
Okay, so there was some confusion. I was like, where's the other 500,000 going? So,
We got
okay.
a revised estimate today, so we
Okay.
tried to update that here on this.
Okay, awesome, thank you.
Yep. And sometimes we do have some technical corrections that we deal with, so that's why. So again, continuing with UCPS and their operations, just to show sort of a history of where we've been, and Commissioner Merrill, you pointed this out, we continue to go up every year, and we fund their wants and their needs significantly. You can say we went up from 25 to 26, almost $9 million. The statutory budget for this year, if we were to go up the statutory amount, 5.6 million, would be 145 million. Again, that's $5.6 million above what last year's funding would be. So I don't, first off, I don't want anyone to mistake that we're giving the schools $5.6 million. We would give them $145 million. That's just the amount above last year's budget that we would be providing them with. And actually, we're going to recommend more than that, and I'll kind of go over that in just a second. But that 145.1 million is the statutory increase that we are required to give for schools. So as you can see, that number continues to go up. And the way the state formula works, and I said this before, it almost never goes down, and that's because when we give the schools more money, that becomes the new floor. And then you use the formula to figure out what next year's is, and it's not lower. Even though enrollment plays into that number, you still have inflation and all the other things you have to put into that, and it almost always yields an increase. And so the more we give Union County Public Schools above what we're required, that floor just gets higher and higher and higher. If you look at look at 139 million, that was significantly higher than what the statutory requirement was. Statutory requirement was roughly about $5 million. There we are, almost $9 million. So our new floor went up by another $4 million on that. And so it's this game that never ends. We're always chasing that number, and unfortunately, it's costly.
Unless you're the state.
That would be
Because-
nice, yes,
State funding is going down
yes, ma'am.
based on enrollment. And to correct the record, there are conversations going on with Representative Dean Harp, Representative David Willis, Representative Mark Brody, Senator Todd Johnson. They just aren't showing up here so you can see it. But these conversations have been going on for at least a year and a half when the teacher stipend went sideways last year and the money was going to be used for something different. But they know where we stand on the fact that Union County taxpayers are giving more and more and more to the tune of $9 million every year because we love our schools and we support our teachers. But what we learned last year is when we send them the money, they don't have to do it the way we talked about. So that's why we have a contingency offer this year to make sure our classroom teachers get that money.
Yes, ma'am.
So, you know, it needs to be very clear. Just because Dean Arp and Willis and Johnson, them aren't here tonight, doesn't mean these conversations aren't happening time and time again.
Yeah, and I would just add, it's not just our board. I mean, I've sat in meetings with representatives from the Board of Education as well. So I know that they're having these conversations also.
They have a legislative breakfast once a year, and I'm pretty sure it's live streamed and archived, but the Board of Education, I did it for 8 years. We would have an annual breakfast to bring them in and let them know what our needs were. And then, you know, give them our top 10 legislative needs out of Raleigh. And sometimes we wind up with $8 million for a natatorium or $2 million for AstroTurf that we didn't even ask for, but we didn't get what we asked for on our legislative needs. So, you know, please know, we're having these conversations, and the Board of Education is meeting with them routinely. We're meeting with them routinely. But these slides are outstanding, County Manager, in showing that we put our money where our mouth is and what we, believe. We believe in Union County Public Schools. And we believe in $16 million to our charter schools. So, very good work here.
Yes, yes, ma'am. Well, I mentioned, and I think you even brought it up, Commissioner Merrill, about that we are definitely not underfunding SROs, and I want to, we're more than funding them, we're enhancing what we're funding for SROs. And I want to point to this slide here. There are things that the county pays for out of the general fund that does not come out of the school's tax rate. It comes out of our general fund tax rate to the tune of almost $10 million, actually a little over $10 million. School SROs, $6.2 million. Behavioral Health Collaborative, almost $3.8 million, and then school nurses. And you add all that up, and that's around $10 million. Now, what we've done this year is we've recommended using some of those school tax dollars to cover a portion of the SRO cost. Not all of it. We're still going to have to cover almost $8 million of those costs, actually a little less than $8 million of those costs out of the general fund. So I don't want anyone to think that we're not funding that. We are, and we fund those which don't show up in the school's budget. And it's unfortunate that we can't get credit for that, but I want to make it clear, there are things we pay for that don't always get reflected in UCPS's budget.
And it is unfortunate that it's not reflected, because when they came to us about the teacher supplement, that we ranked 42 or 36 in the state for the teacher supplement, we ranked number 6 in the state for funding K-12 education. So there's only 5 counties that are significantly larger than Union County and a much bigger tax base that take those top 5, slots, but we're not getting, they're not even taking into account the 10 million that we're putting towards SROs and, the school nurses and behavioral health. That's not even being included in being number 6.
That's correct. Yes,
Number
ma'am.
6 in the state.
You're absolutely right. It's not.
So, Brian, if I can say one thing here, I appreciate this information about the SROs, and thank you for the clarification there, because as I was scrolling through social media, over the weekend, I saw a lot of folks had some concern about this, and I think that some of this came up due to some meetings that we saw earlier in the week with the Finance Committee, where there was a lot of confusion regarding this $2.7 million for the SROs. So, I believe Vice Chair Helms had asked for the clarification there that we are fully funding them, and that's been a commitment of this
Yes.
board, a longstanding commitment to, and we've had to bite it off in pieces, right? But we wanted to have one SRO at every single school. We wanted that 1-to-1 ratio.
And some of our schools have more than one SRO.
So I just want to say that, again, this budget, as I read it, and it's my understanding, and I appreciate the staff's work on this, but we're not cutting.
No,
We're
sir.
not cutting anything.
No.
We're fully funding this. The difference that we're looking at from prior years really boils down to is that we're asking, UCPS to contribute, to the funding of these with some of these discretionary funds.
That's correct.
We're not removing the funding.
No.
We're just asking for them to contribute. Yeah, and that's just a portion of the funds, as you can
That's
see.
correct. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Again, I'm going to get to the slide with the tax rates, I promise. There's some other slides. I want to talk about South Piedmont, and then I promise I'll get to them. I know we're going long, but this is important, so I appreciate your patience.
Mr. Wedger.
Want to talk?
Just a quick
Yes,
question.
I'm sorry. Yes, sir.
So to Commissioner Merrill's point about us funding, I guess we're number 6 out of 115 school districts for funding. Where do we sit as far as receiving funding from the state?
We're
out
at
of
the
115?
bottom. We are literally at the bottom, if I had to say.
Are you referring to UCPS? I think they're
Yes.
around number 113 in state funding.
Out of 115 districts, which I believe that's the number, 115, we run generally around 112, 113 in funding from other sources other than the local government.
I'm new with this, that's not enough.
Well, and unfortunately, the state's formula is heavily weighted towards your poorer counties. I understand that, but unfortunately, the more affluent counties are seen like, well, it's your problem, you figure out how to pay for it.
So before COVID, it affected us, our standing. But then during COVID, the state adjusted the funding formula again so that other counties would receive more funding. And that's how you have our teachers dropping so low. Because the new formula that the state came up with during COVID sent more money to other counties, and so we dropped.
Okay. Very good. South Piedmont, let's talk about them for just a few minutes. They're one of our education partners, obviously. We fund them. Operating budget this year is recommended at $4.8 million. We give them $370, or recommend $375,000 for operational capital. That's not construction of a building. That's things like some of their security stuff, things like that. They have a defined tax rate for them. It is embedded into that education tax rate, but if you break it out, it's 0.77 cents. That money yields what it yields, and we've been able to fund most of their requests. You did have representatives from South Piedmont come and talk to you about their future plans. They have requested some planning dollars and some engineering dollars for some of their future projects. We believe we're able to accommodate some of those planning needs in the future. Obviously, that would require a bond referendum in the future for the voters to say yes to. But in an effort to be supportive of their plans to be able to grow, we've certainly tried to set aside some funds for that. So I think we're on the right track.
I just want to say something for SPCC. You know, out of 26.78 tax rate, they're only getting 0.77.
Yes, ma'am.
And where I'm going with this is on Sunday, where I worship, we recognized plus or minus 50 students that are graduating from across our county that just happen to go to this place of worship. And out of those 50 students, as they were being recognized, I only saw or only heard one that was going to Chapel Hill, one that I think may be going to Furman, one to UNC Charlotte, one to NC State, and almost all of the other ones were going to community college. And that really stood out to me, that the masses are now using their dual enrollment and getting their first 2 years of college through our community college. So I just want to publicly say that I think we're going to have to start putting a lot more focus on our partnership with South Piedmont, because that's where the kids are going now.
Yes, ma'am.
And so like when my children were graduating in 2017 or even 2020, it was a complete reversal where 40 plus out of that 50 were going to a 4-year college, and maybe 10 of them were going to a community college. But that really stood out to me on Sunday when almost all of them were choosing community college instead of a 4-year university.
What and I think what you heard when the South Piedmont folks came here is that their enrollment has been growing, and it's one of the highest in the state. And I think that's a testament to what you're saying, is these students are recognizing, number one, a value, and number one, it's about affordability.
Absolutely.
College costs a lot. I've got one in school, and good Lord, I feel like I'm poor sometimes, but that students can get 2 years and then transfer to any other university in this state. They have a reciprocal agreement where they can literally transfer to any other university, state university. And that's amazing. And then if you don't want to go to a 4-year degree, you can get your associates and do whatever you need or want to do. So there's a real value in that path. And I think more and more students and parents are seeing that, and they're taking that on. And I think you're right. We are going to have to look at what we do for resources, and which is one of the reasons why we've set aside some funding for their potential growth for their new buildings to be able to accommodate these things. So
And
we're
they're
hopeful.
doing good things.
They are.
I mean, we've talked about like their CDL licensing, or basic law enforcement. And I know Charlotte Mecklenburg was building a new facility right across the Union County line in Mecklenburg. And I feel like at some point, this is going to have to become the budget conversation and taking care of SPCC.
Yes, ma'am.
Because that's what our constituents are choosing.
I agree, absolutely. So, the big reveal, you wanted to know about the tax rates, and so here it is, the tax rates as they're split out. So I show you at the top what the general fund is, 11.24%. What is the county's general fund debt? It's a penny, a little over a penny, penny .06. The education operating fund, that's all education, is 26.78 cents. Union County Public Schools plus the charter schools. You'd have to add that in there because it's part of the money that we give them. That's a pass-through. Theirs makes up 26.01 cents of that total. As you saw, South Piedmont only makes up 0.77 cents of that actual rate. Less than 1 penny. Less than 1 penny. So education debt, a little over 3.89%. And understand, education debt is voter-approved debt. It's any debt that we have related to schools. And we have a significant amount of debt for our schools. These are projects that were approved back in the early 2000s. Some are built. We have some new debt that is being looked at. I'm sorry, that's coming online for new facilities, and so that 3.89 cents makes up that debt for those projects. And then what you can see is how it's broken out for UCPS and South Piedmont. And all that adds up to a tax rate of 43.42 cents. Now, you asked the question, Commissioner Merrill, about what does the tax rate for UCPS yield? That tax rate would yield a little over $11.2 million. So that 26.01 cents would yield an extra $11.2 million above what they received last year.
And the state formula only requires us to do 5.6 million above last year.
Yes, ma'am. So while this isn't on the slide, and I'll certainly provide it to you so you'll have it, we are actually recommending that we provide more than that $11.2 million for school functions. Now, here's how we get at that, because that's important for you to understand. 5.6 million is the mandatory amount that we have to give them above and beyond last year's budget. That's the statutory number. So obviously we're recommending we give them that statutory amount. 3.8 plus million we're going to set aside for teacher stipends. And then 2.77 million is what we would use for SROs. Remember, SROs are a school function. And if you add all of that up, that's more than $11.2 million.
Well, and it's a UCPS function because the charter schools are not getting those SROs.
That is correct.
From our tax dollars.
Yes, ma'am.
So it is only for Union County Public Schools.
Yes, ma'am. So while it's not on the slide, I did want to let you know that our recommended budget does in fact take that rate that you would have for school, for UCPS, what that would generate, and we are actually recommending more than that to fund those different needs. Now, I understand that is not what UCPS is accustomed to. These are new. They're not used to us wanting to fund SROs out of those funds. They're not used to us saying we need an agreement for teacher supplements and teacher's aid. But we are recommending that those funds be made available for those purposes. So I want to show you that we intend on funding education to the amount that we actually have and above on that rate, on that tax rate.
So that's $12.1 million.
Yes, ma'am. I didn't have the number in front of me, but I knew it was more than 11.2.
Okay, 12.1.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. As you can see, I want to point out to the public here and to yourselves, everything in green is education. This is the pie that we have as far as tax dollars. 62% goes to their operating funds, 9% goes to their debt. That's 71% of all of our tax rate goes towards education. And that doesn't even include the nearly $10 million that we fund out of our own budget that comes out of that general operations side that says $26 million. That's not reflected in all. Some of it, that $2.7 million is, but not the other $7.5 million. That's not reflected in that number.
But to be fair, 71%, that's big.
Yes, ma'am.
But the $9 million in debt would be SPCC and UCPS, with UCPS being the majority of the 9, but SPCC's in there, right?
Yes, ma'am. This is education as a whole. This
And
is
then the
71%.
62% would include all three, UCPS, charter schools, and SPCC.
Yes, ma'am. And I thank you for pointing that out. It's education as a whole. It's not just UCPS. But as you can see, UCPS makes up the lion's share of that. The SBC dollars are significantly less.
And I would challenge any county, I would challenge the other 99 counties to beat this pie chart. Because Union County is committed to our schools and to our workforce and to the education and certifications they need to graduate and enter into the workforce or the military or law enforcement, whatever. So I can't, I would like to see another county beat this model.
Yeah, I don't know where they stand, but I can tell you that they, as you pointed out, number 6 in the state for education funding, for UCP, for public school funding. I have not seen any revised numbers on that, but I doubt we have gone down or slipped from that number. One other thing that I don't know that the public knows is that we don't just fund teacher positions. We fund all kinds of positions at UCPS. There's a report that the Department of Public Instruction puts out, and this information comes from the public schools. It comes from UCPS. But if you look at that report for the 25-26 year, it doesn't give the current year. It gives the latest one. We funded 904 positions out of their total budget.
Can you say what category might be the largest? I mean, I think I know what it might be, but do you know what position type is the largest that we're fully funding that the state is not funding?
Yeah, so unfortunately, I don't have them right in front of me. I believe it's called the other professional position. I believe that is the one that has
The
the
other.
largest number. They have buckets.
Okay.
So there's an administration bucket, there's the teacher bucket, there is sort of your maintenance type bucket, and then I believe there's one called other/professional. And if I'm not mistaken, and I'll verify it, but I believe that is the one that we fund the largest amount of positions on. I will send that to you.
Please.
But off the top of my head, I can't remember if it's them, but I think it's them.
Because I think we can find about 60 positions that we know are being used in that, but 904 positions in public education that are not being paid for by the state, which is a state role, but Union County is paying for those 904 full-time positions.
That's correct, yes,
Okay.
ma'am. And that number does fluctuate on a monthly
sure.
basis. So that they report what they have, and then that number fluctuates. Don't ask me how they do this stuff at the UCPS level. They have explained that monthly number changes. So it might be 900 this month, it might be 700 next month, it might be over 1,000 the next month after that. I'm giving you a snapshot in time. That number that was reported was 904 positions for that 25-26 year. And that made up assistant principals were in there, secretarial staff, administrators, teachers, teachers' assistants, your folks that are nurses, as well as your some of the other professional positions. We fund all kinds of positions, and that's the reason why we're 6th in the state, but our teacher supplements are low, because we don't get credit for that. We fund teacher supplements, but we fund so many other positions, it does keep our teacher supplement low. It just does.
So, on that subject, Brian, I believe that if I understood correctly from the Finance Committee meeting, UCPS's Finance Committee meeting the other day, I believe the stat that they had for something like APs, for example, assistant principals, was that the state formula essentially allowed them funding, if I understand correctly, and I just want to stress that, but essentially allowed them for enough funding to fund 41 assistant principals.
That's my understanding too, yes, sir.
However,
53 schools.
53 schools, and obviously that's not even one per school.
That's correct.
Which I would advocate strongly that you absolutely positively have to have at least one.
Yes.
But I think currently we sit at 103 assistant principals.
I believe that's correct. Which
So,
means there's 60 or so that we're funding.
that we're funding, and that's only one job classification. Do we know how many total, employees or,
We do. I don't have the number in front of
Okay.
me. I believe, if I'm going to, right top of my head, it's like 4,600
Okay.
total employees.
okay. All right, thank you.
Yes, sir. So again, I just want to stress that, we do fund education, and we put a lot towards education. And I, as the Commissioner Mayor said, I challenge any other county to see that they do more than we do as far as education. So, next steps. You got your budget hearing today. So obviously, you allow the public to speak. Hopefully, adoption on June the 16th, or if the board has any changes, we'll obviously need to know those so we can prepare for that. In between now and the 16th, that is a Tuesday. That's not normally, we would normally meet on the 15th. We had some scheduling challenges, so we moved that meeting to the 16th. I don't want anyone to, come on the 15th and then where's everyone? And we're going to be here on the 16th. That's a Tuesday. And hopefully by then the board is comfortable, or if you need additional information, you let us know. We'll be prepared to answer those questions. We can provide some additional detail here at the public, at the meeting. But then after that, the budget would be effective July 1st, but the fiscal year would begin July 1st. Any questions for me about our my recommended budget?
So I've got some comments, Brian.
Yes,
If you
sir.
can humor me for a second. I know we've had some healthy discussion, but hey, I think that that's great. I think that the more we can talk about, some of these things, then the better off we are for it. First of all, I want to say thank you to you. Thank you to all of our staff that contributed, to this budget, because this is not an easy undertaking. And this is, one of the most, probably if we had to put one thing, that we do out there, this of utmost importance is the budget, because it drives everything that we do, and it drives everything that other folks, possibly do as well, other organizations like UCPS. And we've talked a lot about UCPS today because it takes up a good chunk of our budget.
Yes, sir.
I do want to point out a couple of things. So if you can go back to that pie chart, just real quick, because I was looking at this over the weekend when I was looking over the manager's recommended budget. And, I think you did a good job of explaining this, but, just looking at the tax rate alone. So we've got 43.42. And that's, a stable tax rate, compared to, that's what we adopted. That's the same rate that we adopted last year. And we did that in the face of, a reassessment where we dropped the tax rate essentially 15 cents. So that's a pretty low tax rate. But what stuck out to me, a couple of observations here is that, if you look at the education operating fund and then the debt, and you may mention this, you're looking at about 30.67 cents on the tax rate out of the 43.42. You made mention too that, that's approximately 71%. And now, granted, that's not all UCPS.
That's all education.
That's SPCC, that's charters, that's a variety of things. But what I want to focus in on too is, and this is a credit, to the work that your staff does, and yourself, but that means that we're running county government on essentially, if I'm doing simple math correctly here, 12.75 cents.
Yes, sir. Yeah.
So 12.75 cents out of the 43.42, and You know, most of that's going to go to, and we need it, okay? So just to be clear, because I know Sheriff Kathy's back there, but a lot of that's going to go to the sheriff, right? So, so a lot of that's going to go to the sheriff's office. But the sheriff's office is not by themselves, because a lot of that's going to go to DHHS too, so Department of Health and Human Services. But there's all of these other departments that fall under that 12.75 cents. So you've got, we talked about fire, we talked a little bit about EMS, we talked a little bit about some of the code enforcement fees. So we've got, code enforcement that takes place. We have a ton of things going on to provide county residents services. And I bring all that up to say this, that 12.75 cents out of the 43.42, that shows a commitment to fiscal responsibility. And that was a big part of your budget message this year. And, oh, by the way, again, I held up my booklet there earlier, but this is available, to the public too. And so we have a very transparent process here at the county. We don't pull any punches, and like I said, there's tons of information there, and it's broken down by department. And you've got lines by department. What I wanted to make a couple of comments here. We talked about economic development, again, huge priority. I appreciate the explanation about the charter schools. One thing that I noticed that was different from last year, and this is again credit to staff, was the section on vision, mission, and values. And I love this addition because, I had to sit there and look at it. I was like, wait a minute, I don't remember this being in there last year, and you and I talked this afternoon, and you of course told me that it was not. But I would encourage, our residents to read some of this, because I think that this is important. This is what guides, the decisions that are made not only by this board but by our staff. And again, I think that this is a good thing that we've added. I've got a note here that I love this, right? Because one of the values listed in the budget message that have been adopted by this county is, number one, integrity. And the explanation for that is doing the right thing always. Transparency. Communicate openly. Share honestly. Service. People first. And then teamwork. Together we achieve more. And I know that there was a former commissioner of this board who used to say, to his credit, he said, you can get a lot of things done when you don't care about who gets the credit. So, I appreciate the effort. I think that we've had a lot of good conversation. I think that we've got, a lot of stuff here to digest between, now and the 16th. I know that we're going to have more discussion, obviously, with the Board of Education on Wednesday, and hopefully we can, keep that, respectful and productive. I think that that's our goal. We want to find solutions. We want to find solutions, for our county as a whole. And so, I know that there's probably some interested parties, but that meeting will be open to the public, and it will also be live streamed.
But no public comments.
But there will be, thank you, Madam Vice Chair. But there will not be public comments because this is a special called joint meeting.
That's correct.
So our policy is no public comments, but the public is welcome to attend.
Certainly.
But again, thank you very much for your efforts on this. Certainly appreciate it.
Thank you. And I would be remiss if I don't point to all the hard work that has been put into this. I'm the face of it, but really all the hard work comes from the staff, from my management team to the budget team and the finance supporting staff. They are really the backbone for why this work gets done. And I want to thank them for their hard work. We actually were a little ahead of schedule this year, so I think that made the budget team a little happy. Last year, we were running down to the wire. This year, we were a little ahead of schedule, so I think that, we'll try to continue to do that. But they do an amazing job at getting this together, putting it together so that you have something in front of you that you can digest, you can be prepared, you can make informed decisions. And just to point out the other thing you brought up about the mission's vision and values, that is new to this particular document, and I want to give credit to Megan Parks and Strategy and Innovations for their hard work on that. They were the ones who actually led the charge for that, and I really appreciate that. And we thought that those would resonate with this board because it is really what we try to accomplish and the things that we do here at Union County. I don't have anything else unless you have some additional questions.
I have one. Can we go back to the pie chart?
Yes, ma'am.
Can we break out, can we do, if this is not too much to ask of staff, where it says educational operation fund, 62%, and educational debt fund, which makes up the 71% of education. Can we break out how much goes to just Union County Public Schools, what goes to charter schools, and what goes, and do a pie
Absolutely.
chart
Yes,
with
ma'am.
that, so we can see exactly what percentage is going to UCPS?
We can do that, absolutely.
Please and
We'll
thank
send that
you.
to you, and then we'll have that available for the public as well, but we'll send that to you.
Please and thank you.
Absolutely.
I also want to say how well put together this is. It made my life so much easier Friday, Saturday, and Sunday to do my homework. And because we are so grateful to the budget staff, I would like for you to go back to the last page. And I see a lot of our budget staff here with us tonight, so I just want to say thank you. Great job. Very, very well done. I was able to easily go through. It was a lot of information, but you made it very, very easy for us, so thank you so much.
That's it, then I'm going to step aside so you can hold your public hearing.
So no other questions for County Manager?
All right,
All
thank you
right.
very much.
Thank you. Gosh, we spent so much time on that, I've kind of lost my place here, so. Okay, so I've been given a list of potential speakers here for the public hearing, but I don't have any speakers on my list written down. Is there anyone that has not signed up to speak at this public hearing that would like the opportunity to speak? Okay. All right, well then, seeing none, I will now close the public hearing. The next item on our agenda is item 26-244. That is the GFOA Distinguished Budget Award. Perfect timing for this, right? I now recognize Jason May, Budget and Grants Management Director, for brief comments concerning this item. Welcome.
I know after that presentation, everybody's clamoring for more budget. So I wanted to tell you just a little bit about an award that my team wins or earned this year. The GFO Distinguished Budget Presentation Award is the highest recognition in public service in public sector budgeting. It's the gold standard for a budget document. Not every government that applies for it receives it, and it's not something really that you just show up on a Tuesday and do on a Wednesday. You send it off, it's evaluated by other budget professionals across the country, at least 5 of them, and they send you back an evaluation, and over the past 13 years straight, we have received this award. Why does this matter? It's not something really that we just do for fun. This signals to both the board, to residents, to bond rating agencies that Union County's financial management meets the highest professional standards. It reinforces the county's credibility and, to Chair's comment earlier, the transparency. The budget is not just a number document. It tells a story about what the county values and where it's headed. It positions Union County along with the most well-managed local governments in the country. And as you stated earlier, this is not a single effort either by myself or the management team. It's a team effort across the board. And I just want to recognize in name Assistant Director Blake Hart, my business systems analyst Mary Namala, Senior Budget Analyst Greg Artman, Budget Analyst Megan Gibson and Kyle Goodwin, Grant Specialist Jody Price and Monica Colbreth, and Local Disaster Recovery Manager Stephanie Wright. I want to thank you very much for the opportunity to be able to provide this information for you and to be able to be a part of the process.
Thank you, Mr.
Congratulations.
Congratulations. Yep. Guys, come on up.
Yeah.
All right, Castle. 1, 2, 3. Congratulations.
All right, so our next agenda item is item 26-274, and that's recognition of our 2026 Bobby Cobb Award recipient. I will now recognize Deputy County Manager Patrick Nyland for brief comments concerning this item.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The Bobby Cobb Award was established in 2022, and Bobby was a great man who was taken before his time. Bobby was a great employee, but he was a great man first. He was a dedicated public health employee for several years, and he helped the county and several county departments through a very trying time. He was the type of person that no matter what you called him about or when you called him, he was willing to answer and he was willing to help you. And from that, we've established this award to recognize an employee that goes above and beyond their own department, that is willing to reach out, assist other departments, do more than is required of them. So this year, it is my honor to recognize the Bobby Cobb Award recipient. Union County's Program Manager for Behavioral Health Collaborative, Christina Neal, has received the 2026 Bobby Cobb Award. Neal's leadership in launching cross-departmental mental health initiatives and establishing partnerships with local organizations exemplifies the spirit of the award through her dedication to improving services for Union County residents. Over the past 8 years, Neal has played a pivotal role in building the county's Behavioral Health Collaborative, transforming it from initial concept into comprehensive program that supports students and families. The collaborative, developed in partnership with UCPS, expands access to behavioral health resources, creates coordinated systems for care for young people. These folks deal with some heavy topics. They deal with kids that are, some of them are at their worst. And what they do is try to stabilize them and get them the care they need. And there is story after story how they've been able to do that. And it is truly meaningful for the staff at those schools, the families, and us. So please help me in congratulating Christine on this award.
Feels like we're backwards, with this meeting, with that public hearing. But It is now time for consideration of any changes to our agenda. Are there any motions regarding requested revisions or amendments to either the consent or the business agenda? Okay, so seeing none, is there a motion to approve the items listed on consent?
I make a motion that we approve the consent agenda.
Okay. Thank you, Madam Vice Chair. So we have a motion for approval of the items on the consent agenda. Any discussion on that motion? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion, say aye. Aye. All right. So we are now at the business portion of our agenda. The first item of business is item 26-314, rezoning petition CZ-2026-001 Markham. I will now recognize Bjorn Hansen, Senior Planner, for brief comments concerning this item. Welcome, Bjorn.
Thank you, Chairman, Vice Chairman, members of the board, Manager Matthews. This is the decision agenda item for rezoning where a public hearing was held at your previous meeting. I'll give a brief overview of the rezoning application. The applicant is here in case you have any questions. It's located on NC 75, just east of Mineral Springs. This is a conditional rezoning, so there's a site plan and conditions associated with it. It's on the south side of NC 75. It's a landscaping supply company, so you'd have your equipment bays over here for gravel, mulch, materials like that. 2 buildings associated with the maintenance and operations of the facility, and then some storage in the back where equipment can be stored as well as vehicles for the business. And this was recommended by staff as well as the planning board. No one spoke at the community meeting at your most recent meeting. Yeah, I'm happy to answer any questions you may have, and the applicant is here as well.
Any questions for Bjorn or the applicant? Sure. Vice Chair Helms? Oh. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I'd like to make a motion that we approve item 26-314, the rezoning petition for CZ 2026-001 Markham, to adopt the ordinance providing revision of the official zoning map of Union County, North Carolina, and adopt the consistency and reasonableness statement for approval.
Okay, so we have a motion. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. All right. Congratulations. Thank you, Bjorn. So the next item on our agenda is item 26-315, rezoning petition CZ-2026-006, House of Pearls. I will again recognize, or maybe still recognize, Bjorn Hansen, Senior Planner, for comments.
Thank you. This is also a conditional rezoning. At the most recent board meeting, there were many people who spoke on this rezoning. All but one spoke in favor, one spoke against, noting concerns of inappropriate use for a rural area. The rezoning petition is in the southeastern part of the county, shown by the star on the map. Since this is also a conditional rezoning, the site plan associated with it would be binding upon the parcel, and this development would normally be a special use permit, but the only real twist here is that a special use permit's only good for 1 year, and they want to phase this over several years as they build out these living facilities on the overall site. Staff recommended approval, Land Use Board recommended approval, and many people spoke in favor. One spoke against at the most recent meeting. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have, and the applicant is also here.
Commissioner Balcom.
Just something I didn't touch on at the last meeting. There's some wet natured land on this property. Is there any designated wetlands on the property?
The site plan, I'll put the environmental layer. So in terms of the environmental features, it is wet. There's a pond over here on the north side. As you cross over, this parcel actually crosses over Camden Road. That area is wet as well. We have pictures. It is a lake with wetlands extending to it. And then the stream is just delineated partially into the site, but actually the site plan has that same area. Oops, wrong direction. Oh, I was going the right direction. Is actually, I know, sorry about that. Sorry about that. This area right here says BMP, which is code for the stormwater pond. So this area is going to be retained as a stormwater pond, so that's where water is going to go anyway. So yes, it's acknowledged, and that's part of the site plan.
Any other questions for Bjorn or the applicant?
No.
Madam Vice Chair?
I'd like to make a motion that we approve item number 26-315, rezoning petition for CZ 2026-006, House of Pearls, and the adoption of the ordinance approving revision to the official zoning map of Union County, North Carolina, and Association Master Plan Development Plan, and the adoption of the consistency and reasonableness statement for approval.
All right, so we have a motion for approval. Any discussion on that motion?
I just want to ask, where's Bones tonight? Tell him we missed him.
Commissioner Balcom? Yes, sir.
No, the only comment I have is, I would just like to say to the staff and the people at the House of Pearls, I appreciate the hard work they've done over the years and the lives that you've touched, and being able to help pull people away, in many cases, from their addictions and bring them to a healthy place in life.
I would just like to say, the last meeting we had, I thought I knew a lot about the House of Pearls, but I learned so much more about the legacies and the families that you are giving back to us. And I just personally want to say thank you. I was so excited after the last meeting. I went home and, probably spent an hour, annoying my husband to tell him everything that I had learned. And, what a blessing this is that we have this here in Union County, and you're getting phone calls from other states of, individuals that need and want a bed here, and how important it is to get them straight here. But just want to say thank you, and that, all of those comments did not fall on deaf ears. And just super excited about the work you're doing, and the one thing that stood out to me so much was we had opposition, right? But the point you made so clearly to me and everyone was that, being worried about, these unhealed people being out on the street. But they're always going to be unhealed if we don't get them off the street and to the House of Pearls. They're already on your street. And you made that point so clearly. And I just want to say thank you, and God bless you. And I see the happy tears in the back. And I just want to say job well done. Thank you so much for not only serving Union County, but allowing others to come here and get healed also. Thank you so much.
The success rate of 90%. I hope it goes higher. That's your goal. Go higher.
So stay in touch.
All right. So any other comments or discussion? No? All right. Well, guys, we got a motion. All those in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
All right. Thank you, folks. Perfectly okay. Oh, all right. So now we're at, the closing of the meeting. So I'll now recognize, there. I'll now recognize our county manager for his comments.
I have no comments. I think you've heard enough from me tonight.
All right. It's now time for commissioner comments. I'll start with Commissioner Wedra. All right. No comments for Commissioner Wedra. Commissioner Balcom.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Chairman Hill. I just want to say thank you for all the hard work to the county manager and the staff. I know that budget would be a daunting, overwhelming task. I don't think I would ever get through it. I mean, that kind of stuff, it would take me out, you know. But I appreciate all the hard work that was done, and it was very well put together and very well presented. So thank you. Everybody be careful on the way home.
Thank you, Commissioner Balkin. Commissioner Merrill.
I'm shuffling here because I did have something that I wanted to point out from I believe it was on consent tonight. You know, it makes me so sad that we don't talk about the things that are on consent. So I just want to encourage people, you know, to definitely look at things that may not be on business because it's so important. And the thing that made me so happy this month, and I felt like we were getting a God wink from heaven that for Gary Sides, because Meals on Wheels and food for our seniors was so important to him and so important to us too. But you know, not only did Gary, when he found out there were people on a waiting list that seniors needed food, he got in his car and he signed up and he started delivering food as soon as he found out about it. And this month, a grant, Union County was awarded a $10,000 grant for Meals on Wheels America from a Mackenzie Scott $70 million grant that was going out all across the United States. So just wanted to mention that tonight in our closing comments, because I'm not sure where we are on the wait list, if we still have a wait list, but just wanted to acknowledge whoever worked on that grant and however we got that grant money to help Meals on Wheels. Thank you so much. I know it would make Gary Sides extremely happy. So thank you very much.
Vice Chair Helms.
Well, first, I'm very thankful for everybody who continued to pray for rain like I continually asked. God has been very good to us. Even though we are far from being out of the drought, we are making a little bit of headway with that. So I am thankful for that. Thanks to staff for the blood, sweat, and tears that they put into this. God bless them. You know, it is a very daunting task that they have to undertake every year, and for all the questions we have as well. So I am very appreciative for all their hard work. I'm appreciative of everyone who come out tonight in support of House of Pearls. What a great organization they are, and I'm so thrilled that we could get that passed for them so they can continue to help those women that have addiction problems, to get them on a path back into a society that needs them and to the family that need them. So very thankful for them. We do have a joint meeting Wednesday night at 6 p.m. at the Ag Center with the Board of Education. If you can't be there, that will be streamed. Again, there will not be comments from the public on that, so please be mindful of that. But hopefully we will have a good dialogue, a respectful dialogue from both sides. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Vice Chair. You know, it's funny because Melissa was referring to an item we had on consent. When I arrived at the Government Center today, I saw the video of our meeting where we paid our respects there to Gary. And so when I came through the entrance and I started to get on the elevator, it was playing. I had to stop and watch the video there for a few minutes. And so, yeah, it's funny how things like that kind of come together sometimes. Certainly, that's God's will, I believe. But again, I want to just again say thank you to all of our staff, our county manager, but you know, obviously all of our staff that had input on our budget. I think that our county manager did a good job of expressing, his gratitude, because it is a team effort. And I know, many hands were involved in our budget. So might be some small tweaks, moving forward, but I think that, again, it shows the county, not only our county manager's commitment, but the county's commitment to fiscal responsibility. We see a lot of things in neighboring counties and neighboring local governments that may not be that way. And so Union County certainly has that commitment. We're going to keep that commitment because, your tax dollars are important. And how we spend those tax dollars will always be a transparent process. So, again, thank you for your efforts on that. Megan, the county manager, obviously, brought your name up. I certainly appreciate, the effort that you made with our vision, our mission, and our values. And, the reason why I brought that up is because as I looked over it, I felt that those values are what's exhibited by our board. And I feel like it's so critical to have that alignment, not only from our board, but all the way from the very bottom to the very top. And by the way, the top is our residents of the county. So you look at any kind of org chart, it's not this board, it's our residents. And so I appreciate, your work there, and I hope that drives, a coordinated effort, to stand for those values, in every position here at the county. So thank you. For all those that spoke tonight, I appreciate your comments, as always. Thank you for taking the time to join us to express your opinion. Comments from the public are always welcome. All right, we're always here to have a conversation and dialogue, and so it's important that we hear from the public. For those of you that are still here, we certainly appreciate you guys as well. Thanks for hanging with us. And so with that, that's the end of my comments. You guys have a very good night, and I'll make a motion that we adjourn the meeting. All those in favor of the motion, say aye.